Welcome to God Love Knowledge and this episode, God Love the Saxophone. In this episode, we are going to compare my Selmer Mark VI to my Selmer Mark VII. This is a 1970 Mark VI and this is a 1979 Mark VII. Of course, welcome to my musical instruments channel here. I'll have episodes about clarinets, saxophones, finances, stocks, investments, and anything else we want to ramble about. Of course, as I mentioned, today's episode is the first of about 3 or 4 about the Selmer Mark VI alto saxophone versus the Mark VII alto saxophone. I also have a video of how to easily measure your instruments so we can compare a lot of design characteristics of not only these instruments, but other ones. In this video, we will be reviewing and measuring the design characteristics of these two horns. I just spent a lot of time measuring items, determining the easiest method to measure them, and then compile that information. So in another video, I'll review the visual design characteristics between the two horns. In another video, I'll provide you how you can participate and measure up your instrument for comparison, whether it's Selmer, Coworth, Yamaha, Cannonball, Buffet, or any other brand of alto, tenor, soprano, bari, or even bass. What I try to do is to help you see what critical things to look at and learn more about all these instruments of legend, like the Mark VI, or at least some of them legends. Mark VII is, kind of came out of the wrong gate when it came out. Of course, once again, what we have in front of me is my 1970 Selmer Mark VI. Can we see the Mark VI up there? Here we go. And my Mark VII with the big table keys, as you all know about that. And there's my Mark VII. There we go. Make sure those don't go anywhere. Anyways, my Mark VI is a 1970 alto. My Mark VII is a 1979 alto that I actually bought in 1982. And in the spreadsheet, you also see numbers for my 1979 Koff Superba 1 alto. The 6 we have here is an M tube. The 7 is an N tube. And the Koff is, well, a Coworth horn. If anyone has an alto or tenor, I do have some Selmer tenors that we will be comparing in a later video. And you can either live in Southeast Michigan or wouldn't mind sending it to me, huh? No, I didn't think so. But we will review some stats about weight, tone hole sizes, spring lengths, and a few differences in the design build, either in this video or the next one. So let's dive right into it, to the Excel spreadsheet, shall we? Bingo, here we go. So what I have up here on the top is the brand, model, serial number, and your manufacturer. On the far left, you're going to see letter and numbers here. These are going to be, when I have my video about how to measure up your horn, the sections of what item to measure and how to measure it. But with the neck, let me grab a neck. Bingo, we have a neck. The first couple things I measure is the inner diameter of the opening, inner diameter of the socket, the outer diameter also the socket, and also the measurement from the tip of the neck to mid of where the octave hole is. Also take weight, including the cork. Of course, cork on each neck may create quite a large variable, but in this case, we're not really going to care about that. Now, I do have to say that the 6 neck and my 7 neck are completely interchangeable. They're both round, or at least fairly round, and they both fit each instrument without a problem. I haven't really checked exact tuning on it as of yet, but because my 6 I got a neck and my 7 I got 2 necks, the regular brass one and a gold plated one, and I never really switched necks, and the 7 is a fairly new horn to me. I mean, the 6 is. My 7 I bought in 1982, and the 6 fairly recently. The Koff Superba 1 I bought back in the 80s also. Let me put my neck back real quickly. Bingo, and we're back. So let's look at some of the numbers we have here. When I was first taking these measurements, I was first using a digital caliper. Let me take fairly accurate measurements. Because one thing about a metal caliper, at least a good one, is the jaws here don't flex and they're perfectly flat, showing no space between them. But of course, people don't want to scratch up their horns. So I grabbed my one, I have a plastic one here. It's a fairly good brand, actually, General brand. But I noticed that over time, actually, it looks like it kind of bent the back a bit. But there used to be, just the other day, I was playing with it, some space between the jaws. But I was kind of flexing it back and it seems to be more equal again, more flat again. But you got to take that into characteristics when you use this, and also always go back to 0 when you use it. But I started using just a plastic one because, of course, I don't want to scratch up the horn or anything. So you may see some dimensions here that are kind of big, but in essence, when I do my video review of how to measure your horn, I'll be using a plastic one, because what we find out is, I remember when I was measuring tone holes with Keywork Office, a lot of them aren't perfectly round. So taking a measurement from one angle really doesn't matter that much, but it'll give us a good idea of major differences in like tone hole sizes, actually tone hole diameters. So what we have here between the 6, which is in this column here, and the 7 over in this column here, is with the neck opening, we have 11.84 to 12.26, and on the 7 is 12.33 to 12.67, because it's not really perfectly round. But there's not too much of a difference. The 7 is a little bit bigger. I don't really think it's a major issue. I do realize on one of my early, like 1926 cons, I think it was, someone took the neck and they actually expanded it so that it was actually larger than it was, and it was like a large funnel going to a smaller funnel, and it blew really easily and made a really more powerful horn. And I took a generic neck at one time, made in a Chinese neck one time, that was used water pressure to blow it out so it's smooth inside and stuff, and played it, and then I expanded the outside of the neck, and yeah, it blew more easier, and you could get more air through it because you created a funnel going in. And then I roughened up the inside of it and made it actually play for me actually a little bit darker, because the higher harmonics were hitting all the rough spots and not bouncing properly and stuff like that. But we'll get to that in another video. Anyways, we have the socket, the opening isn't very much. The socket is basically the same, 22.6, 22.62 to 23. They both fit in my 6 and my 7. And this is an N series, remember. The 6 is an M, the 7 is an N, later one. I would like to compare, as I mentioned, if someone has an early M series, 75 or 76, 7, I'd like to compare that to the two. But of course, the socket fits well. And what we have here is the weight of the neck is 110 to 116. And the major difference here, and there's not much, you put it together, and there is a visual difference you can see, is a measurement from the end of the neck to the octave hole. The 6 is 79 millimeters and the 7 is 78.8. Not much of a difference. You can visually see it too when they're next to each other, but I'm sure that has a lot to do with tuning. Finger positions. Now in finger positions, what I'm doing here is I'm measuring the middle of a pearl to the middle of another pearl. So in this case, with this first one, the left hand, we're doing the first pearl to the third pearl. So from B to the G. And what we have here is 48 for the 6 and 48 for the 7. Left hand first pearl to end of table. So what I'm doing here is measuring from mid of the first pearl to the bottom of the table. What is that distance? Because that's important for overall reach. What we have here for the 6 is 110, and for the 7 is also 110, but since the large B flat is so big, it depends on how you angle it, and it could be up to 112, but for the most part, it's basically the same, 110. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see this too. I also have Cough Superb 1 over here, where first to third is 50, and to the table is 106. Here we have third to the mid G sharp. So taking from the third pearl to the middle of the G sharp key. And we have 21 for the 6 and 26 for the 7. The cuff is at 25. Now here the G sharp key arm. What I'm measuring here is the arm going from the rod to the front of the G sharp area. And this will get more important in the next video when we review the mechanical differences between the horns. And the 7 is longer, but it's also thicker than the 6, so it adds more weight to it too. And because the table is bigger and the pearl is pushed out more, it's a little bit longer, it's a little bit thicker, and that's kind of the way it is. But this will become more important later on. Well, it's just a number really, but just something for you to think about. This one here, we got left hand third height to the table. This is the difference, and it's hard to measure it. It's kind of you measure by eye really, but the difference between the height of the G sharp key to the middle of the pearl, and it's a small number. As you can see here, 6 millimeters on the 6, 3 on the 7, and 7 on the cuff superba 1. Tail with the body height. This one's kind of hard, but it's basically going down from the middle of the G sharp down to the body. It's going to be hard to measure if you do it differently, but I basically go down where the arm is, where it touches the body. And on the 6 is 27, on the 7 is 28, on the cuff it's 27. Here we have another measurement, left hand pearl to the thumb rest. So what I'm doing here is I'm measuring, in this case, first pearl to the thumb rest. What is this distance if it's a straight line? And we're going to do the same on the bottom too, also the rise. On the 6 is 53, on the 7 is 54, which, you know, your key height could be off a little bit. The key height on the 7 is basically 1 to 2 millimeters more open than the 6. So this is the difference there. So 53 to 54, and the superba 1 was 52. Now on the right-hand side, we have other measurements. On the right hand, we have the first pearl to the thumb rest diameter. And that's 66. On the 7, it's also 66. On the superba 1, it's also 66. And that is distance from here to here if it was a straight line. And the next one is the drop. That is the amount of distance from the first pearl down to where your thumb is. So if you're playing and the pearl was equal to where your thumb is, that would be 0. But usually your finger's a little bit higher than where your thumb rest is, and that's this drop. On the 6, it's 4. On the 7 is 3, and the cuff is 8. Of course, thumb rests are adjustable. And I try to put mine in the neutral position where they would probably come from the factory, where the plastic thumb rest is equal to the bottom of the base down here. So, of course, there's also aftermarket thumb rests and, you know, all the other stuff. When it comes to ergonomics, I have some of the smallest hands you'll come across. I have 5th graders that have bigger hands than mine. And so my finger position, hand position really matters. And on the clarinet, when we get to things like this with the clarinet, you'll see how shifting the thumb just a little bit puts your pinky in the better position of playing the table keys, especially on a clarinet. Saxophone, the bigger, and there's only 2 of them. On a clarinet, they're smaller and 4. And shifting the hand on clarinet, since it's smaller, really changes your position because your 3 fingers have to cover the tone holes and your pinky has to go out there. And if you don't have much flex in your hand anymore, I used to be able to play an octave on the piano. Don't know if I can do it anymore, but it really matters in the hand. But anyways, we move on. Right hand first to third pearl. So this is how spread your 3 fingers are. On the 6, it's 64, 7, 61, and on the cuff is 60. So the 6 actually has more of a spread on your right hand than the 7. That's interesting when most people say the 7's built for big hands. Right hand third pearl to the E flat roller. In this instance, I measure as if it's a straight line here from the pearl to the middle of the roller. Now, I know a lot of people play differently, but when I play myself, my finger is always at the rollers. I don't go extra distances to play, to push the key down. And that comes really important when we get to the table keys. But that's my measurement there, because the rollers are fixed and your finger position may be elsewhere, but the rollers are there in the same place all the time. So what we have on the 6, we have 12 millimeters. On the 7, we have 11. And on the Superba 1, we have 13. This next one is the height. That's the drop. If, and you kind of got to eye it once again, between the 3rd pearl and the E-flat roller. And this is at 3 millimeters on the 6, 3 on the 7 with a different lever throw, and 7 on the Superba 1. Now, you've always heard how the 7 is a heavy tank to play. Well, here we get to more of some body information here, and specifically the body weight. I have to redo these numbers because these numbers have the plug in it. But basically, with the 6 have 2176 grams. The 7 is 2773. Yeah, 600 grams more than the 6. And you'll see that weight comes into play. Remember, like I mentioned, the key arm here for the G sharp is thicker and heavier. Of course, a bigger table key. You got fatter ribs to support more posts, like as a factory F sharp key. Of course, you got bigger table keys here, longer arms on the E flat key. Of course, you have the high F sharp key that's there. You know, there's a few bits here and there that seem just to add up on the weight. Palm keys are a little bit thicker. They don't flex as much. Little things here and there that just kind of all add up. Of course, I don't know about the tubes yet. You know, the bell ring brace also is thicker and sturdier too, from a 2-point to 3-point design. Always a little bits of weight here and there. And we'll get to that more in the next video. Of course, in the Superba 1, 2431, right in between. Now here I measure out the length of the tubes from top here down to just the top of the ring. So the main tube length to the ring for the 6 is 468, for the 7 is 467, and for Superba 1 is 477. So roughly, really no difference. Now here we got the outer diameter of the top tube under the socket. This is measurement underneath the socket here, where you can get to just the body tube itself for the 6 and the 7. And for the 6 is 25.23, for the 7 is 26.81. What I didn't measure though is how far down I had to go. Those are some other critical things to be looking at. For the Superba 1 is 25.62. Now the outer diameter of the bottom of the tube at the ring, way down here, for the 6 is 48.1, for the 7 is 49.47, and the Superba 1 is 50.5. I measured the height of the rib thickness, and it came out basically the same, 0.83, 0.88, and it depends on where you measure it and how much solder is underneath it. But for the bow, we got below the body ring is 52 on the 6, 50 on the 7, 50.75 on the Superba 1. And moving on to, that was basically here. Now we're moving up to this measurement over here. We have 57 for the 6, 61 for the 7, and 58.5 for the Superba 1. Now the bell, this is from here up to the diameter of the whole bell. We have 57 for the 6, 61 for the 7, and 58.5 for the Superba 1. Oh, excuse me, that's the bow still. For the bell is 59, 61, and Superba 1 is 58.5. Now the diameter of the bell itself, the 6 came out to 122, the 7 came out to 120, and the Superba 1, which is known for being a big bell, just like cannonballs are, is 129.8. Now here I get to tone hole diameters, and this requires some filling. That I originally took it by metal caliper, but then went to the plastic one because I know if other people want to do it, I don't want them to scratch their horns. And this is basically filling, trying to get a distance in here of just the outer diameter of the tone holes. There's multiple ways of doing it. You can do outer diameter, or if you can, get the inner diameter, or use the plunger, and you get the inner diameter of one side to the outer diameter of the other. I try to stay outer diameter for all of them. I did a variety of mixture of measurements. I'm like, that's just going to confuse people if they try it. So we'll try to keep things simple for people to put their own numbers in. But as an example of the ones I have completed, for instance, these side keys, the 3 side keys on your right hand palm, the side F, which is the key, the tone hole up here is 11.65 for the 6, 15 for the 7, which is also the same for the Superba 1. For the side C key, which is up here, and then the B flat, which will be underneath it, is 21.4 for the 6, 22 for the 7, and 22 for the superba 1. And the side B flat is 20.8 for the 6, 22 for the 7, and 22 for the superba 1. I used the plastic one on the 7 and the metal one on the 6, so probably if we round up the 6 numbers, they'd be more relevant to what we have over here. So like the side B flat would probably be the same. If we get down to the stack G sharp key, we have on the 6 22.8 and 725 and 22 on superba 1. The right hand side F sharp, which would be the key above your first finger, 24.98, 22 on the 7, 23 on superba 1. The right hand F key, which has the pearl on it, is 29.84 to 29 on the 7, 27 on superba 1. The E key, 31.46 compared to 30 and 29 on the Cowworth. The right hand D key is 38.64 compared to 39 on the 7 and also 39 on superba 1. Now we get to the bow keys. The E flat D flat key is 32.19 compared to 31 and 35 on the superba 1. The bow C key is 32.75 compared to 28 on the 7 and 35 on superba 1. The C sharp key is 36.3 on the 6, 32 on the 7, and 33 on superba 1. Now the bell keys, there are 38 for both of them on the 6, 39, which could just be an air rate for the 7, and 43 on superba 1. Imagine that. Now in this next section, I'm taking a look at spring lengths because the 6 is known for a more fluid type reaction in the keywork. And that is indicative of longer springs. Now my 6 is actually a relacker, so it doesn't, I don't know if that's, I never really inspected, but it does have, it's an old relacker, so hopefully factory type springs on it. I haven't really looked at it that much. It is the old blued steel one, so it's hopefully it's all factory and it plays nicely. But I don't feel that much of a difference compared to my 7 in the stacks. But here we get to the left hand pinky table, the C sharp. So outer key here, 31 on the 6 and 25 on the 7. And I'll be showing how to measure these things. I basically measure it from where the post is to where the cradle goes to. And that's basically how I measure. We'll get to that in a measuring video. The B is 29 and 30. The B flat is 28 compared to 30. Right hand upper F is 29 to 28. Right hand C is 32 to 30. Right hand B flat is 25 to 21. Right hand F spring is 21 compared to 19. Right hand F sharp, side F sharp spring, 31 compared to 29. Right hand E, 19.9 compared to 20, same. Right hand D is 29.3 compared to 26.3. You can see that the 6 is definitely longer in most areas. And the right hand pinky D flat, E flat is 41 compared to 29, and the C is 33 compared to 27. Though I do have to say, you know, with the 6, it's using the same posts and the leverage is different. On the 7, they created the design where the feel for both the keys are the same, whereas on the 6, they're definitely different. So, you know, the horn was, they tried to improve the feel of some things in some areas, and I'm not quite sure why they did this with the big table keys. But when I play, as I mentioned before, is my pinky never leaves the middle rollers on the large table key. So I don't have an issue with my small hands because it's the same here. The only problem I have is I can actually play the B flat and the C sharp key with my palm, which is harder in 6 because it's smaller and harder in the cuff too. So that's all for this video for what we're doing right here. Well, that is a lot of information to digest. I'll put a link of that in the description below for people to review using Google Docs. If you're interested in measuring your instrument, I'll have more information when I post a video of exactly how to measure your instrument in a future episode. And I'll have a follow-up video of comparing the physical differences of the two horns. It's going to take a while to compile as I'm taking pictures of the same angle in the same area, so I can clearly see the differences rather than just hold each up to the camera. But there's a lot of minor differences, and it's all related to, well, design, of course. And we saw the tone hole differences and everything, and it's basically been an evolution. And if you like what you saw, please subscribe and like, and tell your friends to subscribe too. Thank you for listening to my ramblings. Questions or comments down below. You gotta love knowledge, you gotta love life, and you gotta love the saxophone, right? So see you next time.